Content warning. This episode discusses human rights abuses, including sexual abuse, violence, and murder. Listener discretion is advised. In a city where federal forces have shot multiple civilians and tensions are boiling over, the lines between policing, immigration power, and constitutional rights are blurring. Who has the authority and where is the accountability? This week's episode is The Violence and Crimes of ICE. Sinisterhood. Well, thanks to everybody for sending the questions in that you sent us. And you're not alone in asking these questions, certainly.
No, everyone is reeling at what's going on and has questions. A lot of the questions, in some situations, I don't think anyone has the answers, really.
Yeah, or the answer is, man, this has been broken for about 25 years and it's time for something to be fixed. And everyone's just taking advantage of what were pretty wide open doors that left our civil liberties vulnerable.
Yeah. We're going to give you up top kind of a background of ICE, because I think a lot of people, maybe this was their first time of really hearing about this organization that's been around for a while, but they've just been making the news a lot more lately. So, but I think that context helps provide even more information as to how they are grossly violating the authority they've been given and using all their power for bad.
Absolutely. Yeah. Not everybody with a badge has the same authority. And I think that gets misconstrued in the media whenever it's like, well, just listen. It's a cop. You should just listen. It's like, well, I don't know. Depends on who they're asking. Where are they? Do they have jurisdiction? So we'll give you all the overviews and then answer your questions at the end.
Well, before we do, something to look forward to.
That's right. We next week, February 13th, Friday the 13th. Why don't you go ahead and book Crime Wave at Sea and we'll just sail away from everything that's happening. I've been going through old pictures and my notebooks and man, I miss you guys. I miss all the other creators. I miss all the listeners. I miss the IRL staff. I miss it all.
And you can give yourself a nice little Valentine's present or tell your significant other, hey, these go on sale the day before Valentine's Day. We totally get it. It's a huge ask and not cheap. So we sincerely appreciate those that make the journey. And we really try and make it worth your while by being available during the vacation, not even because we're told to, because we want to. You guys are super fun to hang out with.
I didn't want to go on a cruise with nobody, randoms. Like, I want to go on a cruise with you guys that we know that you like the same stuff we like. We know that you want to have the same kind of fun we want to have and like stare over into the abyss. So
remember, they're cruising with us. Exactly. The other ones, we're not cruising with them.
Exactly. This is I feel like if you ended up on this cruise accidentally, you'd be super jealous that you were not in our crew. Like, that's how much fun we have. So go to Crime Wave.
Probably become one by the end, like your friend from Australia.
Exactly. Thank you. Shout out to Margaret. What's up? I owe you an email back. I'll send you my blog post that I talk about you in. But go to crimewaveatsea.com/sinister. That's where you can get info on payment plans, deposits, how to get the $100 off your cabin, as well as a private meet and greet with us. So make sure you get your fan code and get ready for next Friday, the 13th. A lucky Friday the 13th.
Well, in the meantime, let's talk about this shit show that we're currently living in. I'm Christy.
I'm Heather.
And let's get into it. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, both trace their roots to much older federal border control functions, but they were formally created in their modern forms after 9/11 as part of the Department of Homeland Security, or DHS. Historically, U.S. Customs Authority dates back to 1789, when the federal government began regulating who and what could enter the country, and the Border Patrol itself was established in 1924 to police land borders. Immigration enforcement developed along a separate track, with immigration bureaus forming in the early 20th century and later merging into the Immigration and Naturalization Service. In 2003, DHS reorganized these functions. CBP was created to handle border inspections and enforcement at ports of entry and near the border, while ICE was created to investigate and enforce immigration and customs laws inside the country. CBP combined the old Customs Service, Border Patrol, and immigration inspection functions, inheriting broad search powers historically justified by the judicially created border search exception, while ICE was given investigative and removal authority away from the physical border. This post 9/11 restructuring significantly expanded federal border enforcement power and blurred the practical lines between border security and interior law enforcement, raising ongoing constitutional questions about how far those authorities can extend beyond the border itself.
I think that's one of the biggest questions people had is how are there border and immigration agents in the middle of the country, not near a border. And that's that's what ICE is for, is to go and take the non-judicial warrants, like the admin warrants, that they are just like a piece of paper from an internal ICE employee that says you can go arrest this person. It's not the same as a warrant from a judge. It does not grant you access to a house. It shouldn't, at least. Like that's sort of been the law previously. Now, Speaker of the House Mike Johnson was just on television saying, you're expecting him to go to a judge and get a warrant? That's ridiculous.
Silly.
It literally isn't. And if you were paying more attention to something besides your daughter's virginity, you would know the difference in a administrative warrant and a judicial warrant, which is a neutral third party. That's the judge is so to make sure that the fox is not guarding the hen house.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what they want, is to fox their own warrants.
ICE's treatment of people, especially immigrants and even U.S. citizens, has followed a long and consistent pattern of aggressive enforcement paired with near total insulation from accountability. As far back as the early 2000s and continuing through the present, courts have repeatedly documented ICE and related immigration officials detaining people without warrants, relying on racial or ethnic profiling, holding individuals, including U.S. citizens, on baseless immigration detainers, exposing detainees to abuse and sexual assault in custody or during transport, and using excessive or even lethal force, often with no meaningful justification.
A lot of these, as you would imagine, victims are at the border from Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, anywhere it touches, and are shot in the face for things like throwing rocks or hiding under a car. So the things that we're now seeing in our streets, don't get it twisted, y'all. They've been doing this for literally since they've been an agency. There's a series of loopholes that has allowed them to escape accountability till now. And it seems like they only get worse, right, with time.
And a lack of witnesses to film and report.
Yeah, there wasn't people down there filming them, certainly.
Unless it was themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's a whole other rabbit hole.
Trying to.
In multiple cases, people were wrongly jailed for hours or days, subjected to violence, or lost their lives. Yet courts still declined to hold ICE officials liable. While the conduct was unacceptable, judges ruled that no, quote, clearly established law addressed the exact factual scenarios. This legal shield, known as qualified immunity, has allowed ICE officials to avoid civil consequences, even when courts acknowledged constitutional dysfunction, gross negligence, or serious rights violations. For decades, ICE enforcement has operated in a system where harm to individuals is well documented, predictable, and repeatedly excused by courts, reinforcing a culture in which abuse, overreach, and racialized enforcement persist without meaningful legal restraint. It came as no surprise then that 2025 was a record year for ICE deaths. 2025 became a record year for deaths linked to ICE operations, with at least 32 people killed and many others wounded. Among the most visible cases is that of Miramar Martinez, who survived being shot and whose story is now unfolding in the news. On October 4th, 2025, during an immigration enforcement campaign in Chicago known as Operation Midway Blitz, Border Patrol agent Charles Exum shot Martinez. According to accounts of the incident, one of the agents allegedly told her,
"Do something, bitch,"
just before Exum opened fire. He discharged 5 shots, leaving Martinez with 7 gunshot wounds, and later reportedly bragged in a text message telling colleagues to
put that in your book, boys.
In the immediate aftermath, Martinez was charged with assaulting federal officers, but federal prosecutors later dropped all charges against her. She is now fighting to force the release of evidence that she says the government is blocking as she seeks accountability and answers about what happened that day.
I'm sure you all probably saw on the news, or if there's such an onslaught of news, perhaps you didn't. She's the one that was sideswiped by the federal agents and then shot repeatedly, and then they arrested her for obstruction. And she said that in the aftermath of the future deaths that have now happened through the month of January, she said, I really feel like I have a responsibility to make sure all the footage of what happens to me comes out, all the data, the facts and everything, to show what happened with Renee Good and Alex Preddy is not in a vacuum. And in fact, we can see from the 32 other people that were killed in 2025, it's not in a vacuum.
And I would say she was a lucky one. I think I don't think that they cared if she lived.
No.
I don't think their intention was, let's just shoot 7 rounds near her to scare her or maybe injure her.
Yeah, no, I think it was you were blasted knowing you probably were not going to get in trouble. There's really no way to get an ICE agent in trouble. We'll talk about that at the end.
A federal judge issued a blistering rebuke of ICE in January of 2026, stating that the agency had disobeyed more judicial directives in a single month than
some federal agencies have violated in their entire existence,
according to reporting by the New York Times. In his ruling, Judge Schlitz emphasized that
ICE is not a law unto itself,
writing that while the agency has every right to challenge court orders, it is still obligated to follow them unless and until they are overturned or vacated.
And I'm happy to hear from any government attorneys, but one went on the record in a federal courtroom today asking to be held in criminal contempt and allowed to sleep in the jail cell because I'd like at least to be able to sleep in 24 hours. And she said, I hate this job. I hate the system. Everything's messed up. I can't, ICE is doing so much. We can't keep up with all of the things you're asking us. So yeah, you work for what was once a venerated institution and now I think is probably pretty sullied. But the attorneys that are smashed up in there are like, we don't even know how to comply with all these.
No, I mean, you're never getting your head above water.
No.
So then imagine all the people that are getting, I don't want to say neglected because the attorneys aren't willfully neglecting them, but just by the way the system's set up, they're getting neglected.
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming, the amount of violations that it's like, what do you even do? Flood the system. People can't keep up.
No, yeah. And when you're told by your executive officers, hey, it really doesn't matter what you do.
You'll be all right.
You got carte blanche. You got a bunch of idiots with guns and masks that are going to do just that, whatever they want.
They're like, go name one ICE agent that's gone to jail for killing someone in 23 years. Yeah, you can't. It's so then in practice, you don't legally have immunity, but in practice, you do.
To underscore the scope of the problem, Schlitz attached a list of 96 court orders across 74 separate immigration cases that ICE has failed to comply with since January 1st. He cautioned that even this figure was
almost certainly substantially understated,
noting that the list had been hurriedly compiled by judges already overwhelmed with their caseloads. Schlitz added,
this list should give pause to anyone, no matter his or her political beliefs, who cares about the rule of law,
framing the issue as one that transcends politics and strikes at the core of judicial authority.
Yeah, it really should. And for anybody who's like, you're being you're being excessive with your description of lawlessness or whatever, I don't know. Listen to Judge Schlitz then. I might not know, but I feel like a George H.W. Bush, I think, or maybe George W. Bush appointee judge, like these federal judges are saying it too, right? Like it's lawless because there's court orders they ain't doing shit about.
Oh, there's many people that are on the right side of this that are in powers of authority. It's not just idiots yelling into a microphone like us that are saying they've overstepped. Like there's plenty of people on the right side of the law that also agree with that. So I look to the authorities and the experts and I say, I agree. Keith Porter Jr. was fatally shot on December 31st, 2025, shortly after 10:30 p.m. local time in the Northridge neighborhood of Los Angeles, California. The New Year's Eve shooting took place in an apartment complex where Porter and the shooter both lived. Porter was killed by an off-duty U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agent, or ICE. According to court filings, the shooter, Brian Palacios, had a documented history of child abuse, racism, homophobia, and explosive temper outbursts, details that have raised serious concerns about the circumstances leading to Porter's death.
And that's just it. This guy's not even on duty, but they have this overinflated sense of authority that I'm going to go down there and tell him to be quiet. I bet you will. The guy who's been a documented history of screaming, freaking out, child abuse, racism, homophobia. Why does this person have a gun at all, much less a gun and also a badge?
Yeah, I don't think anyone that has a history of those things should be allowed to work in a government position, especially with a gun.
No, and he rolled up looking for a fight, right? He was inside his house and came out and was going to be like, you need to stop shooting off, rounds or whatever to celebrate New Year's Eve. Like, you're not the fucking law, man. Get inside. But again, it's just this feeling of, well, I can do anything I want.
I have immunity. So
JD Vance said it.
Why not use it? Geraldo Lunas Campos died on January 3rd, 2026 at Camp East, Montana in El Paso, Texas, while in ICE custody. The El Paso County medical examiner ruled his death a homicide caused by asphyxia due to compression of the neck and torso after he lost consciousness while being restrained by guards. His death marked the third fatality at Camp East, Montana, drawing renewed attention to the conditions and use of force inside the facility.
So now you have guards that they're outnumbering this guy, and you just crush his neck and torso to death and kill him, murder him.
And there's nothing he could have done.
Nope. Who's to say he even belonged there? In fact, because many citizens and people with documentation are being taken to these places. Camp East, Montana is horrible. And they're about to build a 9,000 bed human warehouse in Hutchins, just south of us. So Texas, I think, is becoming kind of the safe haven where ICE believes, because rightfully so, because the state government's allowing them to operate facilities like this with not a lot of oversight.
No, our state sucks real bad.
We're taking it back. We're taking it back, baby. We're taking it back. They said, as goes Harrison County, so goes Texas, and as goes Texas, so goes the state. So your home county is giving us hope.
Hopefully so. Hearing about a 9,000 warehouse built not far from here does dampen the spirit a bit, but hopefully we're headed in the right direction.
I was happy to hear Hutchins City officials go, nobody told us about this. Hang on a minute. That you bought that warehouse to do what with now? So maybe there'll be some pushback, hopefully. Sinisterhood will be right back.
If you've ever tried to get psychiatric care and hit a 6-month wait list or bounced around between sketchy websites just trying to find someone who takes your insurance, same. That's why I was so impressed with Psychiatry. It's actual psychiatric care with real doctors that works with your schedule and your insurance. It's not another meditation app. It's real help without the wait.
What makes Psychiatry different is that it's not just therapy, it's full psychiatric care. That means you're meeting with a licensed medical provider who can actually diagnose conditions like anxiety, ADHD, insomnia, and more. And they can prescribe medication if that's part of your treatment. It's 100% online, but it still feels personal and thoughtful. You're not rushed, and you're not left wondering what's next.
And the best part, it works with your insurance. No monthly subscription fees or paying out of pocket for every session. They've got over 600 in-network clinicians, and getting started takes just a few minutes. You fill out a short assessment, you get matched with someone who fits your needs, and you can book your first appointment in days, not months. Psychiatry has helped over 300,000 people already, and it honestly just makes the whole process feel doable.
Head to psychiatry.com/creepy and complete the short assessment to get matched with an in-network psychiatrist in just a few minutes. That's psychiatry.com/creepy to get matched in minutes. Sinisterhood will be right back.
Parody Law's death was reported in early to mid-January of 2026, though ICE has not publicly disclosed the exact date. He died while being held at the Federal Detention Center in Center City, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. According to available information, Law suffered an anoxic brain injury and went into cardiac arrest, with his condition attributed to drug withdrawal, shock, and multiple organ failures. Family members stated that he experienced severe medical neglect while in custody, raising serious concerns about the care he received prior to his death.
Yeah, in addition, if they're not crushing your throat by putting their knee on it, I don't know that they're running to your aid when you're having a medical crisis.
Yes, and if you're going into drug withdrawal, be it prescription or otherwise, even if you're in a detention center or prison, you have the right to be treated medically, and you should be treated.
And quickly and with a caring hand. And doesn't sound like that was what was happening here.
No, it sounds like a case of, oh, well, this one did the work for us. We can just kind of sit back and watch it happen and not intervene, and then there's one less we have to deal with. Luis Gustavus Nunez Caceres died in January 2026, although the exact day and time have not been disclosed. His death occurred in an HCA healthcare facility in Conroe, Texas. The reported cause of death was congestive heart failure, but few additional details have been made public about the circumstances leading up to his hospitalization and death. Luis Beltran Yanez Cruz died on January 6, 2026, after being held at the Imperial Regional Detention Facility in Calexico, California. He was later transferred to John F. Kennedy Memorial Hospital in Indio, California. Yanez Cruz had been hospitalized after complaining of chest pains and ultimately died while in medical care. The precise timeline and medical response surrounding his condition have also not been fully detailed. Well, it's easy to not have a lot of information on the books when everyone that's around that should be documenting it doesn't give a shit.
Yeah, and there is probably, not that I've heard, a current law on the books that says if someone dies, you need to release this information. You need to provide this to their family in this amount of time. This Department of Homeland Security is operating under, well, we said so we'll give you the information when we want to. It's not your, but don't worry about it. So it's hard for people whose loved ones are hopefully still alive and detained, because in many cases they can't even get a hold of them. Lawyers can't get a hold of their own clients. So once you hear about the horrific conditions on the inside, and also that there's people not getting the medical care they need, I mean, it's a huge mess that I feel like is going to take literally an act of Congress to clean up.
Yeah. And for those that die in custody and then there's no time, and maybe days or weeks go by before someone's even notified, the family doesn't even have a date to put on a death certificate, or might not be able to have a funeral. They might not even receive the body of their loved one.
I mean, and think about that too, of like what's happening to the body after they passed away. Are they being treated respectfully? We've seen in the streets, they're certainly not. Yeah, no, so I don't know that there's a lot of care and thoughtfulness, and that's that's a horrifying thought, to think that our fellow humans whose salaries our money pays is just so badly mistreating our neighbors and friends.
Victor Manuel Diaz died on January 14th, 2026 at the Camp East Montana Detention Center in El Paso. ICE reported his death as a suicide after he was found unresponsive, classifying it as a self-inflicted death in its official disclosure. Diaz's family, however, has disputed aspects of ICE's account, raising questions about the circumstances surrounding his death. Heber Sanchez Dominguez died on January 16th at the Robert A. Dayton Detention Facility in Lovejoy, Georgia. The official disclosure did not specify the time of death. ICE reported that Dominguez was found hanging in his cell, and his death was classified accordingly. As with other cases, limited details have been released about the events leading up to his death.
And that's another way, if somebody is being a problematic inmate, perhaps sadly they either truly did succumb and died by suicide, because it's very scary, or if they are seen that might be a way for detention officers to
frame a murder.
Yeah. If you crush somebody's windpipe in one way, just stage it to look in a different way. I don't know. That's completely unfounded conjecture, but that is based on, I don't know, the other guy that they murdered at Camp East Montana. So I think everything needs to be investigated until assume that it was abuse, neglect, murder until otherwise, just given the circumstances inside. And
even if perhaps this individual did complete suicide, looking at what led up to that, because the way they were detained, the way they were held, the abuse they suffered in the detention center when they were being detained, arrested, all of those things. Imagine the trauma and physical and mental injuries you're sustaining, and now you're put in like one of the scariest places you could possibly be. yeah, I might decide I can't do this too.
Yeah.
Or you're strangled to death and then somebody strings you up and makes it look like you did that.
That's a good point. And we also forget many of these folks who are being detained are in the United States under Biden era that were later rescinded refugee programs where maybe they gave information about a gang and came here under the protection of the United States. And then now you get snatched up and they say, hey, we're sending you back. And you're like, they're going to kill me when I go, they're not just going to kill me. They're going to torture me horrifically when I go back. Or one of the withholding of removal cases I saw back at the law firm was like, my neighbors were like, if we see you in this neighborhood again, we'll all kill you because we know you're gay. I mean, that's some of these people. So yeah, if you're looking at what your future on the outside, we're just going to deport you back to where you came from. For a refugee, that's a death sentence.
Yeah.
So one could imagine a world in which you think taking my life here is better than going back to whatever that. And the fact that they were ever even in the situation to have to be sent back to a place from which they have received refuge is unconscionable.
Yeah. They didn't flee because it sounded like funsies.
Yeah,
it was a life or death situation. So if the only way to escape death there was to come here and then you're sent back, then yeah, like you said, it's pretty much a death sentence unless you live in as a recluse somewhere, which I don't know how you would do that when one government's transferring you to another government. They kind of have their hands on you right away.
Right. They're going to find you.
Several recent cases have raised serious concerns about child abuse connected to immigration enforcement, including both abductions and deaths in custody. In one case involving abduction, Liam Ramos was reportedly used as bait and taken with his father to a detention facility in Texas. Following legal intervention, a judge ordered their release, and Liam was returned with his father to Minnesota. The case drew attention to the use of children in enforcement actions and the role of the courts in intervening after the fact.
And the place he was held in Dilley has a lot of kids down there, and Jasmine Crockett, as well as other elected officials, have been investigating, going and visiting. Joaquin Castro, who is a representative from Texas, was instrumental in getting Liam's release. And so he was able to write Liam this beautiful letter that I'm sure Liam's going to keep till he's a grown-up that said, like, some people move the world and don't even know it, and you're one of those people. Like to this, all that kid knows is he got taken from his family, but he and spent the videos and photos of him just like laying limp in the facility, saying he sleeps all day. Yeah, they said he was never like that before.
And I imagine the just petri dish that those are. I mean, a young child with already not a built up immune system, they get quick so fast, and they're not getting medical care. Had he not been able to be released, I don't know, I don't know how that would have ended out, but I'm so glad that he's back. We've all seen the just gut-wrenching videos of him in his little coat and hat, just having no idea that he is being used to drag his dad out of the home. And then his older brother coming home and his mom having to explain why his brother and dad are no longer there, gone, like without a trace. They didn't get to say goodbye. And then JD Couchfucker Vance's audacity of being like, what do you want to do? What do you want him to do? Just leave a child out in the cold? What do you want to just let him freeze to death? As if they're doing him some favor by taking them into custody and putting him somewhere nice and safe and warm.
He's like Texas.
How about call his fucking mother and have her come pick them up? Or, you know what I mean? Like, have local police hold him until she's notified and can come get him. You didn't have to take him. You didn't have to take the dad either.
No, it was an insane false dichotomy. Absolutely. And to hear from his classmates that had drawn pictures of his little blue bunny hat saying like, we want Liam to come back. You realize really, we always talk about ripple effects. Like it is not just a kid and his dad and their immediate family. It's their cousins, their uncles, their aunts, their coworkers, their other kids in his fucking preschool class, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Friends.
So shout out to John Quinones for like accompanying Liam and his dad back, and he was documenting their flight back from Texas back to Minnesota. And he said, from going in this detention facility to now being on an airplane, they let him go in the cockpit and would meet the pilots and stuff. And he said, you got to wonder what's going through this kid's head.
My gosh.
And I think in 25 years, we're going to, hopefully hear from Liam Ramos talk about, I remember what it was like. Much like we hear George Takei talk about what it was like when his family was taken because they were Japanese. And George Takei now fights so vehemently for other folks not to go through what his family went through. I imagine perhaps we've made an advocate out of this poor kid, and he never asked for it. All he was doing was standing in his little bunny hat.
Other cases involved the deaths of children while in custody. Anadith Dene Reyes Alvarez was just 8 years old when she died in Border Patrol custody, despite her mother repeatedly pleading for medical care on her behalf. Carlos Gregorio Hernandez Vasquez, who was 16, died while sick in a holding cell in Texas. Another teenager, Angel Eduardo Mardiaga Espinoza, was 17 years old at the time of his death. Together, these cases highlight the grave risks faced by children in immigration detention and have prompted renewed scrutiny of medical care, supervision, and accountability within the system.
I think it's vital that we contact representatives and senators, red or blue, because it has worked. They did not fund, they removed ICE funding from the minibus bill that had funding for, I think, 6 agencies. They pulled ICE out of it. Now it's a standalone bill. There's a lot of argument amongst the different fiscally conservatives even saying, like, should we be writing these blank checks to this group who doesn't seem to be using the money very well because they're not taking care of the people they do pick up. We're about to see can't even pick some people up, that they're killing them in the streets. So I think it's when you list them all in a row like that, you really realize just the extent of how brutal they are.
On the morning of January 7th, 2026, 37-year-old Renee Nicole Good dropped her 6-year-old child off at school in Minneapolis and was driving home with her wife when she encountered a group of ICE agents conducting an enforcement operation in her neighborhood. Good, a mother of 3 who had recently moved to Minnesota and was not wanted on any criminal charges, stopped her maroon SUV in the street and was speaking with federal agents when the fatal encounter unfolded. According to video evidence and eyewitness accounts, Good and others in the area were blowing whistles and honking horns to alert neighbors to the presence of ICE agents. Good can be seen calmly talking to an agent who was recording her on his phone, telling him,
"That's fine, dude. I'm not mad at you."
Just moments before the shooting. As Good began to drive her vehicle forward and steer away from the agents, ICE agent Jonathan Ross fired 3 shots in under 1 second, striking her. Both video analysis and medical reports confirm multiple gunshot wounds inflicted while her SUV was in motion. After the shots were fired, her vehicle continued down the street, crashing into parked cars and a utility pole. Bystanders witnessed the aftermath, with one resident reporting seeing Good's wife covered in blood and visibly distressed. Another tried to check Good's pulse, but was prevented from doing so by federal agents. Paramedics arrived several minutes later and eventually moved Good to the sidewalk to administer CPR before transporting her to a local hospital where she was pronounced dead.
And the autopsy that the family ordered confirmed that it was the 3rd shot that killed her. So he just was, unloading into the vehicle. I think it shot her through the arm, and then the final shot was fatal. And she was not pointing her vehicle at him. And it's against CBP rules to stand in front of a car, to put yourself in front of a car, which is absolutely what he did. You can see it happen in the video. So he was breaking protocol and then shot her as a result.
There's multiple angles from multiple witnesses, including video from his own phone that he was using to film her in one hand while he had his hand on his gun in the other. So how much can you really be paying attention? I don't think you should be multitasking when you've got a firearm in one hand. And
I would agree with
clearly
that.
She is not in any danger of running him over. She's turning her wheels away at the behest of the agents who are screaming contradictory commands at her. One's yelling, leave. One's yelling, get out of the car. You can imagine when it's complete chaos, you're scared and you're just like, I'm just going to get out of here. And her wife has a hand on the door about to open the passenger door to get back in. She's turning the wheel. You can see the wheels turning away from the ICE agents. So they were leaving. And this motherfucker just opens fire.
Yeah, just unloaded. Truly, it's his footage too is pathetic. It's sad to think that, and I mean pathetic in the way that it's sad that he wanted to capture content, in my opinion. I don't think this was for his own safety. I think we will find out later that there are vast networks of video, picture, and message sharing that are happening with ICE agents that are delighting, celebrating, and treating these deaths like they are video game deaths.
Mhm.
There is currently death cards, which are a old tack white supremacist tradition where you have these cards that say, Customs and Border, whatever. They have like the logo on them and they're leaving them at these scenes. They have these weird death coins they have. They're gamifying.
Like a calling card? Like,
yes,
I was here, I did this.
They are gamifying the murder of us.
Yeah.
Like this should terrify everyone. There is a link I think it's the National Immigration Law Center that is it's a PDF on qualified immunity that sort of summarizes all of the horrific deaths that have happened in ICE because of ICE since it was created in 2003. And what has happened to Renee Good and Alex Preddy is a natural extension of ICE's operations.
Mhm.
It is not like all of a sudden they just started shooting people in the streets. It's just that they really weren't in like Minneapolis. They were in like border towns, right?
Yes.
They were much further south, and the people had a lot more melanin in their skin than Renee or Alex Preddy. But it's not like a new shocking thing. It is a natural extension of how this agency operates by repeated allowable incidents that these incidents have happened. Someone takes them to court criminally or civilly. And every time the court goes, they're just kind of doing their job. And you're like, so you've now established that their job is unfettered violence, that they can anything they want. And so now you have this gal who thought she was dropping her kid off at school. You know what I mean?
Oh, unbelievably heartbreaking. I'm sure everyone has seen the footage by now, which is something, 20 years ago, even 10, we weren't getting the same type of footage that we're getting now. Now that witnesses and bystanders have phones that can film everything, the public sees everything, and that can be both good and bad because it's harder for those at fault to hide behind their crimes. At the same time, you got to protect your own mental health because when you're just scrolling and without any warning, there's a picture of an SUV with blood splattered all over the airbag and whatnot, and kids' toys hanging out of the glove box with blood all over them. It's something that our brains aren't meant to probably see,
No, truly. But we are being exposed to just the type of stuff that, not to sound elderly, but our early days of the internet, you really had to go to specific websites to see this.
I did not see this stuff when I was a kid.
No, and now it's like, this is a cool air fryer. Boop, next thing, horrible violence. Boop, next thing, I'm doing a viral dance. Boop, next thing. It is maddening. And I will hope that the fact that everyone has their cameras out and are willing to film, although we'll see that's not a completely undangerous thing to do. It's not necessarily always a safe thing to do. It's a quite brave thing to do. But that's what's happening is like ICE has been doing shit like this to non-white people for a long time. And there just hasn't been footage of it.
Yeah.
And now there is. And I hope that means that the footage of this will help move the needle so that all of the other things, the murders that they've done, the deaths that they've caused, I think it's murder if a kid throws a rock at you and you shoot him in the throat. But personally. So I think
it's murder, even if they're just coming across the border and you shoot them, which, I don't even want to imagine the number of immigrants that have been just flat out executed walking into Texas. Nobody knows about because they are left out in the desert or buried in a mass grave out there that we don't know about.
You are not wrong. I believe it was Now This News interviewed a former Border Patrol agent, and she said that they called Latino men particularly, but anyone Latino at the border, tonks. Tonks. Do you know why? Tonks? Because that's the sound that a metal flashlight makes when it hits you in the skull.
Wow. So that's a real up close and personal thing you're doing too. That's not even shooting from afar.
So it is an insidious organization that must be abolished and replaced. Full stop. It is not, we'll get to it in a little bit, but it's ungovernable as is in the current schema that we have. And the death of Renee Good alone should have had it be abolished.
Yeah. Renee Good's shooting, captured on multiple videos, sparked widespread outrage, protests in Minneapolis, and national debate about use of force by federal immigration officers. Local officials, including the city's mayor, disputed the federal narrative that Good had attempted to ram agents with her vehicle. Memory sites and vigils quickly appeared at the scene as neighbors mourned her death.
And so after Renee Good is shot, there was a lot of vigils that happened. Of course, law enforcement showed up to that and kind of tried to say, oh, they're gathering, whatever. But I think it just really upsets the white supremacists amongst us to see people from every community coming out. And I think it's such a insidious lie to think you should only care about people that look like you. What an ignorant, sad, pathetic thing to think, because I feel like Jesus didn't say that. Whatever also, you do to the least.
He wasn't white, dumb fucks.
By the way, I don't think that, hang on a minute. You mean that guy from the Middle East that I follow? But truly, I think it was this idea of like, these people are all just showing up because of her, but Renee Good was shot on the 7th, but 7 days later, another gentleman named Julio Cesar Sosa Celis was shot in Minneapolis. He was in the door of his house, kind of trying to get in his house. And then they had some friends coming in. There was a Facebook Live video of it, a live stream of a 911 call from inside the house. And it was just this like crazy chaos. As if it were a high-speed pursuit of someone who had a child kidnapped in the backseat. You know what I mean? Like that would ever happen, right? But it's this, they're just running around and it's this huge mess. Anyways, they shot him. Thankfully, he lived. But he had opened the door to let his friend inside and the officer shot him. And I think he ended up getting shot in the leg. So Renee Good is killed. We're like 7 days later, they shot another guy in the same city. Again, this organization is inherently rotten from the core to the outside, and it has been since it began. And nothing happened.
No, and then 2 weeks later, as the nation was still reeling from the murder of Renee Good, another innocent life was viciously taken. Alex Jeffrey Preddy was killed on the morning of January 24th, 2026 at approximately 9:05 a.m. Central Time at the intersection of 26th Street and Nicollet Avenue in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Video footage from the scene shows Preddy holding only a cell phone as he recorded federal agents during an enforcement operation. Witnesses and footage indicate that he attempted to shield a female bystander from being shoved by agents. Preddy was pepper sprayed, tackled, and disarmed of a legally permitted firearm that he never brandished. While pinned to the ground, he was shot 10 times in less than 5 seconds, resulting in his death.
And I'm thinking about that woman in the pink coat, the woman in her car.
And the woman in the car, dude.
Do you hear their screams and saying, "What have you done? What have you done?"
It is rare that as a witness that was not in a place, it's rare that we hear the raw reaction or see the raw reaction of people honestly reacting in a moment like that. And, the movies cannot capture what it really sounds like for someone that is screaming like those guttural cries of having watched someone's life just be taken from them. Like literally the woman in the white car is filming. She watches him die. The interview of her with Anderson Cooper, I also highly recommend. I mean, she's traumatized for life, but she said I watched him die, and then I watched everyone that killed him scatter after rolling him around to see how many bullet holes they had gotten. Because like you said, it's a game to them. And even after that, they're like, "Get out of here." And would you want to just get out of there in your car after 2 weeks before you saw Renee Good get shot in the head for just getting out of there? And also, it's complete fucking chaos. There's a dead man on the street. There's agents everywhere. There's bystanders, rightfully losing their minds, freaking out. She's trying to drive. I'm like, it's not even safe for you to drive. Like, no one should have told you, now keep driving after you're in complete shock and trauma. Like, no, somebody should be called to sit with her and others to witness this. And someone should be called to, I mean, I don't think any type of CPR was going to bring him back, but at least be given the right to have aid administered, you know, and not be told like Renee Good when paramedics show up that are bystanders, protesters that are like, let me help this person. And they're like, no, you can't do that. When does that ever happen? When have you ever been at a place and if someone yells in a crowd, we need a doctor here, that they're prevented from getting somewhere to help someone, you know?
It is egregious. And again, anybody who's like, well, you just want a bunch of illegals to come in the country? Yeah, first of all, I don't fucking care. If you want to show up and work and be cool, it's the Everybody Be Cool party. It's my new political party.
I don't give a fucking fuck.
I don't give a fuck.
Who lives here? Because
pay taxes,
guess what?
I have to. It sucks.
We all won the lottery. Yeah. Where you're born wasn't up to you. And you happen to be born white, you happen to be born in the United States, great. That's not a birthright in the sense that many think it is. You know, you just won the lottery. That doesn't mean that carte blanche, you have any more agency or right to this country than someone else did, because you can't have illegal immigrants on stolen land. And let's not forget that the United States, it was just taken over by a lot of white colonizers from England. You know, we didn't live here first, everybody.
No. Yeah, no, we just came in and we're like, oh, you have like a whole society. We're going to burn it down and kill everyone if you don't leave. Yeah, it's crazy. I've been reading the history of my hometown and it's crazy business. And that's just one city. So imagine, extrapolate that across the country. But you're right. Like, I think the idea that we have some sort of like, well, you just want to let the illegals run free. No, I think we've got laws, you know, follow the law. If you don't, go to jail. But I don't agree with wholesale, first of all, rescinding already in existence programs that allowed people to come here. That's false pretense. That's like saying, come to my house for a party. And then when you get there, being like, I called the cops for trespass. And it's like, but you said there was a party and I could come here. And it's like, too bad, I'm going to lock you in the closet.
Isn't that
it's like, that makes you a psycho. Yeah, that makes you a psychopath, right? That you lured someone here, took it, be like, hey, but you want to help me with some stuff around the house? Haha, the cops are on their way. Yeah. It's like, what is wrong with you? That's crazy stuff. So anyway, all that to say, I feel like this is a rotten agency that is far surpassed what its initial goals were. And even if it were merely to enforce immigration laws, it's gone so far beyond that. They're shooting fucking bystanders, man. We've gone beyond that. And even if not all of them are bad, yeah, they are, because they're all standing around going, no, yeah, you can't go help them. All of you have participated now. So
you're all complicit by being there. And just for signing up for the agency in the first place, knowing that this is run the way it is. I would say anyone that still works for ICE or Border Patrol is complicit, because you know what your colleagues are doing. Maybe you're not doing it, but you're still getting a paycheck from the people that are allowing it.
Yeah, and my question would be, why are you not standing up and stopping this? Like that woman who did the interview with the news organization going, I'll tell you exactly how fucking racist and terrible this organization is. Like, that's all well, you know, if like, well, my cousin's one of the good ICE agents. No, they're not. Tell them, then come forward and be a whistleblower. Unless you're like actively documenting from the inside right now and currently whistleblowing to, I don't know, somebody in Congress that has the ability, the power,
or
of the
purse,
boots on
the ground journalist who has
send it to Andrew Callahan. Yeah, something.
Send it to Aaron Parnas.
Fucking Don Lemon, whatever. But like the idea that there just isn't. And I think after this, we have to grapple with when ICE is abolished and we no longer have this organization running immigration. I think we've got to grapple as a society. What the fuck do you do with people who used to do that as a job? Yep. So that's something we got to think. We got to make a plan for that.
If you look back to World War II, a lot of them just went about their business afterwards. And then later, perhaps maybe were brought up on war crimes and murder charges and whatnot if they were found. But a lot of them just went on to live everyday lives. And we cannot allow that to happen. Every single person needs to be held accountable for their part in this.
No, I would agree.
I would also say to the notion of, well, you just want illegal immigrants coming here causing crime. The connection that racists make that a legal immigrant equals crime has got to be abolished. Like, just because you came here and maybe you weren't born here doesn't make you a criminal. If that's the crime that you're speaking of, which I don't think it is. I don't think they're saying, well, it was a crime, they came into this country, so therefore they're a criminal. They're saying, oh, they're raping your kids. They're stealing your stuff.
No, that's the president.
They're
Sorry,
selling drugs to everybody. Yeah, the president he's the number one kid raper. He loves it so much that he's started wars and all this shit to hide how much he loves it. But you aren't a criminal just because you're an immigrant. And that's what white supremacists don't believe. They believe if you're an immigrant, it automatically makes you a criminal. Therefore, you have no rights here. You probably are a murderer, a rapist, a drug dealer, whatever. You got to be sent back. When I have news for a lot of you, that stuff's going on with the people that were born and raised here way more than people that left a country that was so bad that they came here for a better life and to hopefully make money to send home to their family that is still in a war-torn country to perhaps give them a better life. They are not here to cause trouble and fuck around with us. They just want to be left alone and live a peaceful life where they can, just a humble, peaceful life. That's all they want.
Well, and in many cases, the law that we passed back during the Clinton administration, it's like the IRA. It's IIRA. It's like immigration, whatever. It's this IRA. And it was passed in the Clinton administration, and it made staying past the when your visa expired this crazy offense. When before it was like, hey, if you're here and your visa expired, come on down and tell us you're here, check in with us, make sure everything's cool. And then because of that, it caused a ton of people to stop complying because they had missed their window and they would have to go back to their home country for 10 years. Meanwhile, you might be engaged, married, you have a job here, something like that. And so
you got kids. You've established a life.
And as to the folks that are like, well, the fact that they came here illegally means they are criminals. I just want to tell you, entering the U.S. without authorization is a low-level federal offense. It's comparable to a traffic misdemeanor or a regulatory violation. It is not a violent crime. It is not a serious crime. And in many cases, it's not a crime at all. It is a civil immigration violation. That is two different things. And whomsoever wants to tell you that that's just a crime, and I'm doing that voice because it's from where I'm from, and that's what the dumbasses around me sound like. Mm-hmm. From where you sound like, they might have a New York accent or a Minnesota accent or a Washington State accent. I don't know. But from where I'm from, they sound like this. And usually it's not jail time or a criminal record. It's like a zoning infraction or a tax compliance issue. So the idea that by virtue of being here or overstaying a visa, you're some nightmare monster from hell. I have some information, and most of the time it's because of this IRA law that we passed. So again, in addition to abolishing ICE and a completely new regulatory scheme over immigration, we just need new immigration laws.
Yeah.
They're just shitty. They're bad. And they have been since Bill Clinton.
And we need a completely new organization to oversee it.
Meanwhile, Clinton.
Oh, first of all,
dude, I'm so sad if he's in the Epstein files. I'll have to get rid of my Clinton shirt and my Clinton Bible and my Clinton hat. All my Clinton things. I have to throw them out. No,
I've seen many pictures of him with young women or mentioned in those files.
They're going to testify, him and Hillary. They want to publicly testify. So let's all just wait for that.
I don't think their hands are clean. I certainly don't think Trump's hands are clean. In fact, he's probably got blood and shit on him as we speak. Probably both came from him. Maybe a child. Probably both. So all these people are like, he did something illegal. And then you go and vote for the biggest criminal that maybe the world's ever seen, that somehow got the office of President of the United States.
I know how.
Almost comical that someone so horrible was put in such a position of power. And I'll just go on record and say, I think he stole all the elections.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's a hot take. I mean, I think it's pretty proven at this point, which again shows you money and power can get you pretty much whatever you want. And these Epstein files all they've done is solidified that.
Yeah, Ro Khanna called it the Epstein class. He's like, it's this class of villains, essentially, who they insider trade, they steal elections, it just
rape their own
kind
kids, trade their kids to other billionaires to be raped.
Completely lawless. Absolutely. Yeah. So, well, it is all connected, sadly.
And no one could look at those things and be like, yeah, I don't know. I just don't believe it. I think I just think they made it up. I think the libs are making it up. They're a bunch of snowflakes. They're just making all this up.
Well, if you think that, then you should call the United Kingdom, who's currently doing an investigation to one of their former members of the House of Lords, who emails in the Epstein files indicated he would give Jeffrey Epstein information from within the United Kingdom government in order that Jeffrey Epstein may front run money that he managed, including Vladimir Putin's money. And so now that guy got kicked out of the House of Lords and is under this whole investigation. There's also someone high up, I believe, in the Polish government that's now being investigated. So in the States, whomever wants to say none of it's true can say that. There are now investigations going on internationally that whatever cover up we think was going to happen in the U.S., it's just not going to be able to be covered up anymore. I think we're in a long march toward complete restructuring of the government because there's too many dirty people. It's a lot.
A lot of the wool had been over a lot of people's eyes for a long time. Like, okay, maybe a couple people do these things. And then you see these files, dude.
It's all real.
It's everybody. It's royal families, any type of billionaire family, oil families,
Elon Musk, Peter Thiel.
Oh, yeah, all of them.
Tech billionaires, all the tech billionaires.
All the tech billionaires, politicians on both sides of the aisle, from like...
We got to do an Epstein update.
Low-level politicians all the way up to the president of the United States, who was best friends with him. It's almost like you reach a level, whether it be politics, celebrity, familial wealth, generational wealth, whatever, and you're brought into a circle where like this is normalized, and you make the decision like, is this something I'm into or not? And if you are, then you're pulled right in and you're protected and you get to do the grossest things anyone's ever imagined. Or you're like 50 Cent and you're like, when Diddy wants to party, everybody's got to leave. You know,
say no.
We all know what that means.
It's time to leave. Yeah, it's almost as if there's a pedo island. Don't go there. But
many of them.
The DOJ, the Assistant Attorney General Todd Blanche said, partying with Jeffrey Epstein is not a crime. And I'm like, dude, can you hear yourself?
Being in emails with him is not a crime, sir.
Hey, just because I golfed with John Wayne Gacy 6 times a week doesn't mean I'm like some pedophile pervert forgiver. You know, he's a nice guy. He was hilarious, by the way. Did you ever see him? He did Pogo the Clown better than anybody else. He was hilarious. Yeah. Floors in his house, it was kind of hollow sound. It was weird stuff.
It was weird.
But he was a nice guy. And I'd take offense to people being shitty about old John Wayne Gacy was a nice guy. Like, what are you talking about? They killed people and buried them on golf courses. It's nuts.
I used to ride around town with a gentleman named Ted, looking at pretty ladies. He was a great guy. He had a fun little car. We would go in the woods. He'd show me his favorite spots. I don't get why everybody thinks he's the one that killed all these women.
It's like, maybe, I don't know, all the fucking circumstantial evidence that's everywhere. And the alive victims, by the way, who can point to these people. And also,
to all of this, my biggest point is, if you lay with dogs, you're going to get fleas. And you cannot tell me that any of these people that had such a personal relationship with Epstein, that they were emailing back and forth, didn't know what the fuck was going on.
Yeah. There's no way.
I mean, like, he was pretty open about it.
And like half the emails, they'll be like, yeah, this and this tax thing or this and this investment thing. And they'll be like, hey, that pizza party was great, by the way, which, by the way, was code the whole time. Pizzagate, 4chan. We got to do a whole Epstein update because we're getting far afield. But all that to say is it's all woven in, like business and pleasure all in the same email. So don't try to act like, well, I couldn't have known. It's like Frank Costanza on Always Sunny when he's like, I went to the island, but it was only for scuba diving. Okay. 95% of the stuff was fine. The scuba diving was nice. The pedophile stuff kind of sullied the rest of it. And Dee and Dennis were like, yeah, it sullies the rest of it. You can't be friends with Jeffrey. He's like, but we just did business together. It's like, that's satire. Like, that's what you sound like right now.
Wait, did you say Frank Costanza?
Frank Reynolds on Always Sunny.
You said Costanza, though.
My bad. I meant Frank Reynolds.
We can cut out Costanza.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. It's ridiculous because it is ridiculous. Like, there's no way that anyone who worked at that island in any capacity didn't know what was going on. If you went to the island even once, you knew what was going on. And you knew before you went because that's why you went in the first place.
Yeah.
Come on, everybody. It's pissing me off that everybody thinks so little of the intelligence of the general population that everyone's just going to buy this bullshit.
No, and you can keep trying, but this is actually one of the biggest things with what few MAGA loyalists are left. The Epstein files are kind of the final fly in the ointment for them, for a lot of folks. And I think that's why Trump is so hard fighting against it. Because, also because, you probably don't want to go to jail or find out that you drink people's bloods or whatever. But all that to say, I do think that it is a crumbling empire, a crumbling institution. And that's why they're behaving so erratically and so violently, is they see the writing on the wall. It's unstoppable. It's unstoppable.
In the immediate aftermath of Alex Preddy's murder, agents were filmed clapping and making comments such as,
"It's just like Call of Duty,"
while manipulating Preddy's body to count the bullet holes. The footage sparked widespread outrage and intensified scrutiny of federal use of force practices. So I have always been one to say music doesn't cause violence, video games doesn't cause violence. I don't know that I think that way anymore. I don't think it causes. Causation doesn't always,
Correlation, yeah.
But for someone to be desensitized enough from playing so many shooter games and Call of Duty that then in real life they chalk up taking a human life to it being just like on the video game, there's a problem there.
Yeah, it would make me wonder how much their playing or simulation has to do with their predilection for violence. Like I said, not whether it's a causation, but whether it is a person who is already we'll hear that one of the shooters sounded like a pretty perhaps violent person. I don't know. You tell me. But and that maybe gets you a little amped up and makes you kind of enjoy it. And that is the type of thing that I don't think you can train out of somebody, that they equate responding to a law enforcement scenario like it's so much fun. Like, that's a slap, in my opinion, a slap in the face to the real first responders who take it extremely seriously and understand it's a life or death situation. And these asshats are an embarrassment, I think, to all law enforcement.
A huge slap in the face to the person that was just murdered too. Because in Call of Duty, you kill someone and I don't know, they respawn, or somebody comes and, it's a game character that they can just start playing again.
Yeah.
Alex Preddy's not getting back up.
Yeah, he's not going back to work and taking care of veterans. He's not going to go have dinner with his parents. He's not going to go hang out with his sister. He's not going to see all of his friends or go hiking with his buddies.
None of that.
But this guy will probably go home and play Call of Duty.
Yeah. One was Border Patrol agent Jesus Jesse Ochoa, who joined Customs and Border Protection in 2018. According to his ex-wife, Angelica Ochoa, he graduated from the University of Texas Pan American with a degree in criminal justice, had long aspired to work for the Border Patrol, and by the time of their separation in 2021, had amassed a personal collection of roughly 25 firearms.
I mean, the president and Greg Bovino said that because Alex Preddy had a gun, therefore that meant he wanted to massacre law enforcement by mere virtue of possessing a firearm. That
legally
implied intent to massacre. So what does it tell you when someone has 25 firearms?
Yeah.
Let's use your same logic.
The second shooter was Customs and Border Protection Officer Raimundo Gutierrez, who joined the agency in 2014 and works for CBP's Office of Field Operations. Gutierrez is assigned to a special response team that conducts high-risk operations similar to police SWAT units. Records show both men are from South Texas.
So one was from 2014, and this was 2026, the shooting, and the other one was hired in 2018, and the shooting was 2026. So the notion that these are just like newbie randos making an oopsie is I think a very dangerous one, because it would, the Band-Aid of like, well, they just need more training. They've had since 2003 not to be a rotten cancer on American law enforcement, and they've chosen not to be. And this is the result. So I hate to hear limp promises from lawmakers to go, well, maybe we won't give them any money until they have a little bit more training. You can't train out. It's just like Call of Duty.
No.
You can't train that out.
No. And it's the irony that they're both Latino men working for this organization is not lost on me. And in fact, it's not uncommon. And I know a lot of people, I see so many comments online that's like, what do you mean? Raimundo Gutierrez is working for Border Patrol? And you're like, yeah. And only he can tell you why.
And only he can tell you what would happen if he encountered one of his colleagues when he's not in uniform.
Yes. Yep. Before the shooters were publicly named, CBP official Greg Bovino described one of the officers as
highly trained,
citing extensive experience as a range safety officer and less lethal instructor. The White House and the Department of Homeland Security initially declined to release the shooters' names. The officers were later placed on administrative leave.
And the Department of Homeland Security and the White House also smeared the reputation of Alex Preddy and made up completely crazy lies about him that were very obviously the opposite of reality, given that we all had the camera angle. But what a nasty insult to an irreparable injury to his family, that you've stolen their son, their brother, their family member. And then on top of it, to go and say he was going to massacre law enforcement when his very last act on this earth was to put himself between vicious, violent people and a woman.
And his last words were, "Are you okay?" To the woman that he was protecting. He was carrying a weapon that he did not brandish, and he had a permit to carry. Let's just point out here, Kyle fuckhead Rittenhouse took a full-on fucking rifle strapped to his chest, loaded to a, quote, protest, and was heralded by the same people that are now saying, well, if you're going to take a gun to a protest, then you should probably be expected to be shot. It gives, well, what was she wearing? Did she ask for it?
I'll tell you what, I've been calling Ted Cruz and John Cornyn going, hey, I just want to say as a Texan, I'm offended that the White House is attacking Second Amendment rights. And I think that the Customs and Border Protection coming after us merely for legally owning our weapons should be, you know what I mean? It's like, this is even against you. You don't care about people. Do you at least care about guns?
They have always. And I mean, it's wild that, I don't know, since 1998, everyone's been screaming for gun reform. I believe that's when Columbine was.
99, yeah.
And, it's never been bad enough to where we got to do something with the Second Amendment. Now, though, Alex Preddy has a gun at a peaceful protest, wasn't even brandishing it, wasn't even using it. And this is what's going to be a call to action. And now they're going to start using the argument of, well, he shouldn't have been carrying a gun, when that's their favorite thing to do is carry guns.
Well, that's why we had gun reform in the 70s, because of the Black Panthers. They're like, whoa, sorry, we can carry guns.
We get to carry the guns. You
can't.
Do not. But I mean, people that are huge advocates for the Second Amendment do want to not just government have guns, the right for, all citizens to bear arms. So that would include Alex Preddy. He's part of that, should have that right too. But now it's a reason to shoot him 10 times when he didn't even pull it out. They just saw it and they took it from him and then put it back on his body after they had killed him.
Which is like I think, again, they're trying to cover up what they have done, and I will be fascinated as more information comes out, because I don't think this is never going to get investigated. I think maybe right now the investigation will be slow going. Preddy's family has hired one of the attorneys who was instrumental in the conviction of Derek Chauvin, who murdered George Floyd. So I think the family will not let this go. I think the public won't let this go. And to the extent some people had tagged me, I think on a Threads or on Blue Sky, asking if Alex Preddy's prior encounter with ICE, where he kicked a taillight out of the vehicle, someone's like, you wanted me to love this guy already, and then you show me this video. But and then he's tackled and a rib was broken several days before this, when ICE came at him in this altercation. People have asked, ICE has a database of all of us. Ken Klippenstein, the independent journalist, has obtained internal documents, and they really are tracking our faces, where we are, what your score is on whether they could take you or not. And people would ask, if they had scanned his face and said, oh, that's the guy that kicked our taillight out, let's go beat the shit out of him or whatever. That's a great question. Are they, I wouldn't know if it's first degree murder, but their instigation of it, their misuse of this digital data. I don't know. I don't know the extent to which that digital data was used with Alex Preddy, but given that he had a prior altercation, and we know that CBP is collecting data on all of us. When you go to the airport and they're like, we don't need to see your passport, just look into this iPad. What do you think those pictures go to, you guys?
Yeah.
It's not like a yearbook.
No,
it's like a database.
They know where you are at all times.
Absolutely. So that was a question I had gotten, could this be first degree murder? Potentially. I mean, that's why all this evidence has to come out, and there has to be a full investigation.
I meant a minute ago when we were talking about Alex Preddy's parents to mention this too, but I can't imagine. I just can't fucking imagine. And same with Renee Good, and same for all of these. You lose your son, daughter, partner, mom, brother, insert whatever there, in such a violent way that you probably have seen countless times happen, a video of it, and you probably saw it before you even knew, that had happened. You see the footage and then you get a call. Oh, by the way, but to go through the trauma of losing a child, even if they're an adult, is unfathomable. To go through that same trauma when this will be written into the history books, there are no words. And I'm sure there's support groups for people that fall into this category, because it does lump like a whole new layers of trauma on top of something that's already unbelievable, that your son's name is being dragged through the mud by this, by the administration. You're like, what the fuck? We were all just sitting here earlier this morning, and now we're being told our son's a terrorist. And their letter that they wrote to, just as their statement, everybody go read. And a lot of people have taken to socials, like celebrities, to read it on their behalf, because their biggest thing is they want everyone to know what a great human and humanitarian he was. He was an ICU nurse at a veterans hospital. There's video of him reading like final rites of a veteran that's passed that he was caring for. This was not a criminal. This was not a bad man. This was a man that, by everyone's account, respected the Second Amendment, respected the right to conceal and carry legally, and respected veterans. So, he doesn't fall under the category that all you want him to fall under. And he's still shot 10 times.
No, and the insult to injury on top of that, of being called a professional agitator, or that he brandished the weapon, that he was going to massacre agents. It's echoes of any time, especially, pre-2020, but really, past that as well. When a person is killed by law enforcement, there's always a combing through of their background. And luckily, Alex Preddy didn't have, some background, because, both Alex and Renee Good, people were like, the folks were like, we got to show that they're these agitator, crazy people. And thankfully they both were. But you saw that with, with George Floyd, with Eric Garner. There's people that were killed that, did not have a completely clean track record as well. And the police shouldn't get to shoot them either. And I think we have, going through what his family has gone through, I hope too that we will kind of realize, like, everybody that is killed by law enforcement, regardless of the greatest person or the worst person, that moment is not when they're meant to be killed, right? That is what we have the courts for. We're not supposed to have executioners in the street, whether it's Philando Castile, who was lawfully in Minnesota carrying his weapon when he was killed by police, or Alex Preddy, both of whom were, pillars of the community. It's just like, we can't have people getting killed in the streets.
No, and we should all not want that, because it could easily be you. Even if you think it couldn't, it easily could be, because as we've seen, you just might be in a neighborhood with your car trying to like stop some ice from getting in, and that's the last thing that you do. You know what I mean? No, but none of them woke up that morning and were like, I'm going to go out and fuck some shit up so bad that I bet I'm going to get killed for it.
No, you're driving and you've got a, tail light out, and they pull you over and you go, I just want to let you know I am a concealed carry owner. My dad, when he had a concealed carry, he used to put his hands out the window and would just like keep them like, he's like, because I know they know that I have a gun. And even doing that, it doesn't matter sometimes. So in this case, there was no brandishing or anything. But
no.
Man.
In the political fallout that followed, Attorney General Pam Bondi sent a letter to Minnesota Governor Tim Walz asserting that he could
restore the rule of law
in the state by turning over Minnesota's voter rolls. Walz publicly rejected the demand, calling it unrelated to the shooting or election administration, and responded that the request echoed claims by Donald Trump that the election was rigged. Walz added pointedly that federal authorities still had
2 million documents in the Epstein files
that they could focus on instead.
He's not wrong.
David Corvell of Louisiana pleaded guilty to repeatedly sexually abusing a woman while she was in custody at a U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement detention facility. According to court records, Corvell exploited his position of power by coercing the woman into sexual acts, offering her access to her daughter in exchange for sexual favors. The case exposed a severe abuse of authority within the detention system and underscored the extreme vulnerability of people held in immigration custody, particularly women separated from their families.
Sexual abuse in these facilities is rampant. I don't have to tell you guys that.
But. Dude. The facilities, the cars on the way to the facilities, pulling over on the side of the road on the way to the facility. It's happening all over the place. Women, men, kids. Several recent developments in North Texas have also drawn attention to the human, legal, and political consequences of ICE enforcement and related prosecutions. One case centers on Wael Tarabishi, a chronically ill man who died after his father and sole caregiver, Maher Tarabishi, was taken into ICE custody in North Texas. According to reporting, Wael depended entirely on his father for daily care. After his father was detained by ICE, Wael was left without the support he needed and later died. Maher Tarabishi remains in ICE custody. The case has raised serious questions about the agency's handling of medically vulnerable families and the consequences of separating caregivers from dependents.
Yeah, it's crazy to me to have a government go, that's your problem. Sorry. It's like, you've caused the death of a person.
And you caused the problem. So if you're going to cause a problem, you have to come up with a solution for the problem you just caused. Another major story involves the Prairie Land Defendants, a group of more than a dozen individuals facing a combination of federal and state charges, including terrorism-related offenses, attempted murder, and conspiracy. The charges stem from a July 4th, 2025 protest at the Prairie Land ICE Detention Center in Alvarado, Texas, during which a police officer was allegedly shot. The Department of Justice has accused the group of being affiliated with Antifa, allegations that defense advocates dispute. The cases remain ongoing, with trials scheduled to begin on February 17th, 2026, at the federal courthouse in downtown Fort Worth. Supporters have organized around the defendants and are directing the public to prairielanddefendants.com for information on how to help, attend court, or donate.
This is a very vital case given the framing of both Renee Good and Alex Preddy as agitators, terrorists, anybody filming ICE as being terrorists. These people went to the Prairie Land detention facility in Alvarado, which is Johnson County. It's southwest of Dallas. On 4th of July, they set off fireworks as part of a noise demonstration, which is a very common protest tactic to express solidarity with the immigrants inside of the facility, to be able to be heard, outside. While there, the ICE officers called local police. I think because it's a rural county, local police happily showed up to defend their buds. And something occurred wherein either shots were fired. I believe there was only a single gun that was not a police gun. Like one of the attendees, again, lawful carry, brought their weapon and there was fireworks going off. So I don't know if the officer was hit by fireworks. He was in the hospital less than 2 hours, released, back on the job. The local district attorney's office framed it as Antifa terrorists went with the intent to murder cops. And now they are being charged at the state level with attempted murder. Federally, they've been charged as being terrorism, domestic terrorists, aiding and abetting terrorism. The implication being that by virtue of being in a Signal chat, that meant that they must be terrorists.
Interesting.
I said, I'm going to use Signal fucking harder. I'm going to use it so
wasn't that like a whole thing with JD Vance and a bunch of people? Signal?
Yeah, where the Secretary of War just like Signal chatted a journalist. Yeah, certainly. So they took umbrage with the defendants using Signal chat. One guy moved allegedly like some papers from one place to the other. And the paper said something like, our plan of attack. Like, what are we going to do to fight tyranny? And the government essentially is like, well, you said you were going to attack them. It said plan of attack. That obviously means you're going to attack. To the point that I was asking not one of their attorneys, but an attorney familiar with this case, I'm like, am I crazy? Because this sounds made up. And they're like, no, it's the government. I think it thinks it's in Tarrant County, it's in Texas, that they're going to be able to show, look, we prosecuted Antifa, when it's nothing more than community members that showed up to a protest thinking, we're going to go to the protest, we'll set off our fireworks, we'll cheer, we'll make noises, and then we're going to leave, go grab a beer, go home. No big deal. Some of them have been incarcerated in Johnson County jail awaiting trial since 4th of July. I think one of them has gotten out. And the rest of them are stuck in horrific conditions. One of them has been put in solitary confinement. So it's Prairie Land, Prairie, prairielanddefendants.com. And if you're anywhere near Fort Worth, you have time to go to the events they're staging outside the courthouse, to the extent they'll let, I don't know how many people will be granted entry into the courthouse, but there are plans to do demonstrations to support free speech, to support what I would say is gross government overreach. But it's definitely a case to watch, because we don't want to set the precedent that merely showing up to a protest means that you're a domestic terrorist. No. And that's what they are trying to establish with this case. And there's been like not a lot of national media attention, a little bit like the New York Times and local KERA, but like you don't see this on like, ABC News Dallas or anything.
And Tarrant County is the one that just turned blue, and that's where Fort Worth is. That's my hometown.
Come on, baby.
Yeah, maybe I'll go down to the courthouse. Haven't been since my dad was a judge there. It's a beautiful courthouse for what it's worth.
Right. So this one is at the federal courthouse. So
okay.
Yeah.
He did not work there.
Well, there's I'm sure later on there will be future demonstrations once the federal charges are somehow disposed of. There's also still the state charges that they face. So it's just a huge mess for these folks who really wanted to go out and protest, support the detainees, and express solidarity and let those folks know on the inside, hey, there's people out here that hear you, see you, are thinking about you. And to be framed as like mass murderers who were using Signal to plan their dastardly. Some of the people arrested, by the way, weren't even at the protest, were merely in the Signal chat. So that's something else to be concerned about. It's a huge overreach,
because it could be anybody. I mean, I could see myself setting off fireworks outside a detention center or being in a chat,
Yeah,
I mean, absolutely. Any of us.
So it's shout out to National Lawyers Guild and the folks that gave information I learned at a little event, but go to that website and make sure people know about this, because I think it is, especially in light of them framing Renee Good and Alex Preddy as Antifa agitators or whatever. You don't want to set that precedent that that's even a thing at all.
Yeah. Separately, controversy continues to surround ICE prosecutor James Rodden, who was previously identified as the operator of a racist white supremacist account on X. Despite the exposure, Rodden has returned to work in Dallas Immigration Court. His reinstatement has prompted backlash from elected officials and community members who are actively pushing for his removal, citing concerns about bias, ethics, and the integrity of immigration proceedings under his authority.
If someone tweeted, migrants are all criminals,
Yeah,
or America is a white nation,
that one will do it.
all blacks are foreign to my people,
They just keep getting worse.
praise Hitler.
Oh, there it is. There's the button.
So, yeah. Anyway, he's back on the job.
James Rodden. So his last name is spelled Rodden, should be Rotten, but
More like rotten.
anybody that wants to go look him up, that's his name.
Yeah, no, that's what he's doing. So that's no good news other than we're aware of it. And that's the type of, when people go, they should just do it legally and just the system is fair. Is it?
No, it isn't. No, it isn't. It's fair maybe sometimes if you have the right skin color.
Yeah.
But even then, it's never really fair. I feel like it's in almost all cases, it's your money, power, and skin color come down to how fair something is going to be for you.
100%. Absolutely. Ain't that America? You and me. No, it is.
Well, we've talked a lot about all of these things. So what do we think? Any final words to take us out?
Yeah, no.
Sounds dire, but that's because it is.
No, I'm happy to see the fact that the pressure that we've been putting on elected officials, including Republican elected officials, I just never want people to go, well, my officials are Republican, so it doesn't matter that I called. They have to write down that you called, and they absolutely care, and they are terrified about losing at the midterms. So if you have a safe Republican district, perfect time to call and bitch at them, because otherwise they think everybody's on their side.
Yeah.
So I think like calling, it sounds, it feels like you're not doing anything. They really do have to write those down, and they really do track those. But the fact that the funding bill that was up for a vote on the 30th did not pass shows that this is not a unified government, that everybody is fine with what ICE is doing. So don't let that get you down, that this shit is happening. Obviously, it's terrible that it's happening, and it's going to keep happening, but it is not unstoppable. I think it's all stoppable. There's been shitty things that have happened to Americans before, and we have journalists that are working really hard, and we have representatives that are working really hard, senators that are working really hard. That really, there's maybe 5% of them. It's not a ton of them, but they are. When combined, the truth will come out. I think people thought, Nixon was untouchable, and between Woodward and Bernstein and just like a handful of people on a judiciary committee, sometimes it doesn't take that much to move the needle. In the meantime, it feels impossible, but it's just one little, it's like a chess game, right? You can get bummed that you might, you're losing pieces and things, and that is not to, downplay the true horrific loss of life that we've been seeing. 2025 being a record year, 2026, based on how many people have just died so far. I mean, we're set to beat 2025.
Yeah.
So calling and insisting to the people that represent you, showing up to public meetings, things like that. It sucks. We all have homework right now. It's like, we all kind of just we didn't really have to look at life and worry about it. It's like, no, unfortunately, it's a republic. If you can keep it, is what Ben Franklin said. So we got to keep it. And we got to do a Q&A separate with all the questions and answers, because this one went a little longer.
I think it's really easy to be lost and hopeless right now, because it's not just like one terrible thing that's going on. It's an amalgamation of, I don't even know. I've lost count of how many terrible things are going on. That's also part of their strategy, flooding the zone, release so many horrible things, do so many horrible things that the do-gooders are overwhelmed, and they want you to be paralyzed and unable to speak and act for the right side of history. So don't let them do that, and there are, we'll link them in our show notes, but there's tons of places that give you almost little scripts to say, if you do want to call Congress members, what is it called?
5calls.org.
Yes, 5calls.org. Because I know myself included, I'm like, I don't like talking on the phone, period. And it makes me stressed out. And especially when it's something like this, I like to have a little script so I know what to say and don't go off topic and can just make my point known. So that's a great one. And looking up, who your local constituents are and voting in local elections, especially in the midterms. And, all those things you might feel like aren't enough because they're not big movements like going out to a protest and demonstrating, but that's okay. Everybody shows up in their own way and in different ways. And that's how we all tackle it from all sides. Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And if you guys are curious, what we're talking about in Tarrant County is I think Trump won by +7. And I think the Democrat just won by like +17. I mean, he swung at like huge numbers. So the idea that local elections are extremely important. Those are the people who are going to listen to you and help. There's an appropriations bill that's going to the House this week, and it has triple the ICE funding. So just making it clear using that 5calls.org and stuff like, I don't want this, So we do have the questions that you all sent in. We thank you for those questions. We're going to do a separate Q&A where we just do question, answer, and hopefully release that later this week for y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll get double episode this week and then Freaky Friday.
Heck yeah.
So hopefully, this helped answer some questions and clear up maybe some confusion about why things are happening or how or what we can do to stop them. And if between the time this comes out, after you hear it, if you have extra questions, email them in and we'll get them added to our Q&A too.
Yeah. Go to sinisterhood.com/contact and just click submit a main feed topic and go ahead and just put them all in there. And that way they're all in one place.
Absolutely. Oh, in conclusion, fuck ICE.
Yeah, dude. Burn it down. We got to start over. We need a new enforcement regime.
Absolutely.
That apple is rot to the core. Or however the song goes.
He's on his way out.
Yeah, dude. Bye.
Bye, bitch.
This episode of Sinisterhood is made possible with the help of our amazing patrons.
If you're interested in supporting the show, consider joining our Patreon. You'll get access to ad-free regular episodes, weekly bonus content, you're able to vote on episode topics, join our monthly live streams, and more.
Keep it creepy.
Mwahaha.